and CEO of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, or NYSERDA, and I'm here today as co-chair of the New York State Climate Action Council. And as we commence our third public hearing, I certainly want to start by noting that our fellow New Yorkers are in our thoughts this evening with today's tragic events in Brooklyn. And with that, I will turn to my co-chair, Commissioner Basil Seggos, for a few remarks.
Doreen, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you all here in Binghamton, and thank you very much to the SUNY Binghamton family that has welcomed us into this great room, and to the Assemblywoman who's front and center, of course, in front and center of this institution for many, many years. It's a pleasure to be here. Some of you may know we've been at this now for almost 2.5 years, coming up with the draft scoping plan, which is now out for public comment. I wanted to take a moment just to thank the literally hundreds of staff and volunteers, including all those on stage with us today, who've been a part of this Climate Action Council scoping process. It's been an extraordinary effort, and has produced, I think, an extraordinary document for public comment. But now is a chance to hear from you all. These are very important. We're doing 10 of these around the state, 2 virtual and 8 in person. A chance to interact formally with the public, but we understand also that this relationship with the public will last for a long time on this very important issue of climate change. So again, thank you for being here today. Look forward to hearing your comments.
And now we're very pleased to be joined by our fellow members of the Climate Action Council. So I'll ask them each to introduce themselves in turn.
Hello, I'm Donna Carolus. I'm the National Fuel Gas out of Buffalo, New York, and I am an appointment from the Assembly. Pleased to see you today.
Hi, good afternoon. Peter Iwanowitz, member of the Climate Action Council and appointee of the New York State Assembly Speaker Carl Hayes.
Bob Howarth, a faculty member at Cornell University and a member of the Climate Action Council, courtesy of appointment from the Assembly.
Hi, Ruthie Wisniewski. I'm the Commissioner for New York State Homes and Community Renewal.
Good evening, Gavin Donahue. I'm president of the Independent Power Producers of New York.
Hi, I'm Ann Reynolds with the Alliance for Clean Energy New York, the resident of Glenville, New York, and appointee in the Senate.
Thank you to the members for being here, and I'd like to turn to Assemblywoman Lepardo for a few opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks so much for being here and for participating in this very important activity, something that we are all needing to be more engaged in. I want to thank you for coming to Binghamton University, and welcome to the Innovative Technologies Complex, a place where we have world-class laboratories, certainly anchored by our Nobel laureate, Stan Whittingham, who is doing world-class battery research. In fact, our area is, as you well know, the home of innovation, having invented the computer and flight simulation. We are now standing poised to be a leader in battery manufacturing, battery storage, and we have things very complex at our smart energy building throughout, leaders, worldwide leaders in this field. So we're thrilled to be that you're here today. I also wanted to acknowledge that as an original sponsor of the CLC today, I stand ready to partner with you, of course, in all of the various topics that you're going to be leading on. You have a very impressive report that I'm still working my way through. As the chair of the Committee on Agriculture, I was very supportive of the creation of the Task Force on Agriculture and Forestry. I do deeply appreciate the fact that you acknowledge that carbon sequestration will take place through the avoided conversion of farmland as well as cropland management practices. If the folks will indulge me for just a quick minute, I would like to report to you that last year the governor signed my Soil Health and Climate Resiliency Act. This year, she stood that program up with a $16.75 million add to the budget, which is really unusual. A lot of times we pass bills, we don't have funding to go behind it. We also put $21 million in for farmland protection, and $5 million is going to Cornell's Climate Adaptive Research to help them upgrade their facilities. And in addition, Pro Dairy requested a $250,000 additional grant to hire a climate leadership coordinator to assist farmers with environmental stewardship practices. We're very proud of the role that agriculture is playing in your endeavors. Of course, I understand there are many other topics. And for my purposes, I will be leading on the agriculture side. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thank you very much. And we would certainly like to thank Binghamton University for supporting tonight's hearing. And I also want to ask the participants at today's hearing to maintain decorum and abide by the rules posted. We certainly ask and expect everyone in the room to demonstrate respect for each speaker, as they would expect the same respect for comments they would like to make. And the Climate Action Council certainly thanks you for your interest in our draft scoping plan and for your attendance at this evening's hearing. We are looking forward to hearing from the public on the work of the council that has occurred over the past 2 years, which is reflected in the draft scoping plan. This hearing is one of 8 in-person and 2 virtual hearings being conducted across New York State to ensure that residents, businesses, and interested parties have an opportunity to share their input related to the draft scoping plan, which was released on December 30th, 2021. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed on our Climate Act website, and additionally, a stenographer will take record of any verbal comments received tonight. All comments provided here today will be considered by the Climate Action Council as it finalizes the scoping plan by January 1st, 2023. And written comments are also being accepted through June 10th, 2022. Additional details can be found on the Climate Act website at climate.ny.gov. Written and oral comments are weighted equally by the council. So I will now hand the hearing over to our meeting facilitators to run through the structure of tonight's hearing. Nora?
Thank you. So everyone, welcome. We're going to have a robust conversation tonight where we will be listening to what you have to say about the draft climate action plan. I'll be going over the rules of order, but please keep in mind that the number 1 rule is being polite and attentive to each other. People are going to say things you agree with. People are going to say things you don't agree with, and both are welcome. Before we get started with the hearing portion, where we will be listening to what you have to say, Sarah Osgood is going to give us an overview of the draft climate action plan, so that we can have a grounding for what we're going to be talking about. Sarah, would you like to come up?
And thank you to all of those in the audience and those viewing remotely for joining us here today. As Nora said, my name is Sarah Osgood, and I'm Executive Director of the Climate Action Council. I have a brief slide deck to run through that provides a bit of context on the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which I'll also refer to as the Climate Act, and the process for developing, and as well as the key findings that are contained within the draft scoping plan. Go to the overview slide. The Climate Act established very ambitious and necessary nation-leading greenhouse gas reduction requirements and sets them in statute for the first time. Achieving these targets positions New York to meet the internationally established goals called for by the scientific community and identified within the legislation. The Act empowers every New Yorker to fight climate change while improving our daily lives through new job opportunities, improved public health, and more resilient communities and infrastructure. In addition to climate leadership, the other central component of the law is its requirement for our communities, most notably those that have been historically overburdened and could be in the future as our changing climate takes a stronger hold. Next slide, please. So what is the draft scoping plan? In addition to setting the emissions reductions and technology targets, the Climate Act also established the Climate Action Council and tasked it with developing a scoping plan identifying how the state would meet the greenhouse gas limits. It called for the draft to be issued by the end of 2021, followed by a public comment period, which we're in now, prior to the issuance of a finalized scoping plan at the end of this year. So as Basil mentioned, we are in the middle of this process. The purpose of this hearing is, and the others are to hear your feedback, and the feedback that's received during this public comment period will be considered by the council as it works to finalize the scoping plan. Even then, once the plan is finalized, there's more process involved to establish regulations, which those will also have public comment periods associated with them to ensure that the Climate Act goals are met. So the scoping plan takes a holistic economy-wide view of New York's greenhouse gas emissions. The law outlined a process for this that included a number of advisory panels and working groups, ultimately comprising well over 100 experts, providing sector-specific recommendations to the council. It also identified some key factors and impacts for the council to consider, including climate justice, job creation, health benefits, and a benefit cost analysis. The recommendations contained in the draft scoping plan also form the basis of scenario modeling that considers the interactions and impacts of the strategies across sectors. Next slide, please. I think it's also helpful to see visually what the Climate Act requires for emissions reductions over time. So here we see a snapshot of our current greenhouse gas emissions by sector on the left. And on the right, we can see our overall emissions and where they need to go over time. So this is quite a dramatic reduction over the next 2 decades. For the current emissions, using the new emissions accounting dictated by the Climate Act, you can see that buildings in yellow and transportation in blue are now the greatest contributors and amount to over 50% of the state's greenhouse gas emissions, mostly in the form of carbon dioxide emissions from the combustion of fuels. Electricity generation in green is a smaller piece of the pie now, and contribution from the waste sector in orange has increased. Next slide, please. The draft scoping plan was released on December 30th of last year, and it's available on the Climate Act website at climate.ny.gov. It's the result of 18 meetings of the council where it received information, recommendations, and feedback from a variety of experts, the advisory panels and working groups, as well as analytical modeling of the overall cost and benefits associated with the recommendations contained within the draft scoping plan. The advisory panels and working groups also conducted inclusive processes in the development of the recommendations that ultimately were advanced to the council. Collectively, they held over 90 public meetings where their work was presented and discussed, and they sought perspectives from other panels, experts, the Climate Justice Working Group, and the public and other stakeholders. The draft also includes the new emissions accounting required by the Climate Act. So upstream emissions associated with fossil fuels from out of state are included. And the cost benefit analysis includes the DEC value of carbon, which was also established pursuant to the Climate Act. Next slide. I'll get into the various scenarios in a moment, but several key strategies emerged as fundamental to achieving the greenhouse gas emissions limits and net zero greenhouse gas emissions requirements. Those include energy efficiency, transition from fossil fuels to electrification in buildings, zero emissions electricity, transportation electrification, enhancement of transit and smart growth, and a reduction of vehicle miles traveled, maximizing carbon sequestration in New York's lands and forests, eliminating fugitive methane emissions across the waste, agriculture, and energy sectors, as well as a diverse portfolio of solutions in industry, including efficiency, electrification, and limited and strategic use of low carbon fuels and carbon capture technologies for certain industrial applications. Next slide. The scenarios that were modeled all meet or exceed the greenhouse gas limits, requiring transformative levels of effort in all areas, as well as high electrification in all scenarios. But they do also represent distinct worldwide views based on feedback from the Climate Action Council and the Climate Justice Working Group. So first, I'll just hit on what is common to all of them. They all reach a zero emissions power sector by 2040. They all require an enhancement and expansion of transit options and a reduction of vehicle miles traveled. There's significant levels of electrification and energy efficiency, increased methane mitigation in agriculture and waste sectors, and end-use load flexibility to help manage the electric grid reliably. To highlight where the scenarios differ, scenario 2, which we call the strategic use of low carbon fuels, includes the use of bioenergy derived from biogenic waste, agriculture and forest residues, and limited surface grown biomass, as well as green hydrogen for difficult to electrify applications. Scenario 3, we call the accelerated transition away from combustion. This scenario has a very limited role for bioenergy and hydrogen combustion and a more accelerated electrification of the buildings and transportation sector. And finally, scenario 4 represents a beyond 85% reduction in emissions. This scenario includes both increased accelerated electrification and more targeted use of low carbon fuels. Next slide, please. We completed a comprehensive cost benefit analysis as was required by the Climate Act for the scenarios that I just described. And importantly, we found that the cost of inaction, regardless of scenario, exceeds the cost of action by more than $90 billion. So in other words, the actions that are described in the draft scoping plan offer significant benefit to New York when accounting for the avoided greenhouse gas emissions and improvement to public health. Not included within this number, but in addition to it, are the significant benefits and opportunities to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. So this concludes my overview of the scoping plan, but I do just have 2 additional slides that I wanted to share with information about the current comment period as well as for some related work. So next slide. Draft criteria has been developed by the Climate Justice Working Group for identifying disadvantaged communities, and this was released last month. The draft criteria is currently out for public comment, and so I'd encourage folks that are interested to visit the website here for more information. The draft criteria will guide the equitable implementation of the Climate Act, which requires that the state direct resources to ensure that disadvantaged communities receive at least 35% with a goal of 40% of the overall benefits of spending on clean energy and energy efficiency programs. Comments on this draft criteria will be accepted through July 7th of this year, and there are several ways to provide comments. You can see there's a link for a comment form, there's an email address, and of course you can always use US mail. There are also 2 public education sessions that are being offered, and so please visit the website to check those out. And then finally, turning to the last slide, just another reminder here of the public comment period for this draft scoping plan. This afternoon is the 3rd of 10 hearings that the council is holding across the state and virtually. Thank you. You can see the dates, times, and locations of the hearings here. You can also submit written comment through a form on the Climate Act website, by email, or by US mail. And as was mentioned, the comment period for the draft scoping plan is set to end on June 10th, 2022. So for more information, please visit the Climate Act website at climate.ny.gov. Thank you.
So now to the hearing. Can you hear me? Yeah. So now to the hearing portion of our evening. We are going to have 2 facilitators. I have Vince and Anne. And for those of you who were registered, who pre-registered to speak tonight, you were given a card. And on the card, it says a group number, group 1, group 2, group 3. I'm going to ask now, while I'm giving the overview of how we're going to handle this, that group one queue up behind Vince. Don't raise your hand. And group two, oh, switch it? Okay, group one, I'm so sorry. Group one queue up behind Ann, and group two queue up behind Vince. And as we said, is about a hearing. And in a hearing, we want to listen to what everyone has to say and be respectful and mindful of all of our commenters. The council members who are here are also here to listen. They may ask clarifying questions if something is said that they need some clarification on. But otherwise, this is not a discussion. This is a time for us to hear and to receive information. You may hear things that you disagree with vehemently, and you may hear things that you agree with passionately. I would ask, if you can, please hold it down so that we can give everybody the view that they're deserving, and so we can hear everyone. It is difficult, if not frightening sometimes, to get up and do this kind of thing. So it's important to give everybody the respect they deserve. Pre-registered commenters are going to be called on first, and we then registered some commenters at registration, and they will follow. Each commenter will have 2 minutes to speak, and at about 30 seconds out, our facilitators will tap them on the shoulder or lean over and let them know it's time to wrap up. If I hear that somebody is just about finished when we hit 2 minutes, I will let them finish. If it appears that there is a great deal to go on, I will suggest that they send that information in writing to submit into the comments. So with that, I think we'll get started. Anne, could you tell us who's first?
Yes, this is Mina Koblitz from Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce.
Anne, I need you to speak louder.
Got it. This is Mina Koblitz from Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce.
Good afternoon. My name is Mina Hoblitz, and I'm here today on behalf of Stacy Duncan, the President and CEO of the Greater Binghamton Chamber of Commerce. Our organization represents nearly 800 small and large businesses of various industries throughout Broome County. We advocate for policies that will advance economic growth and bring prosperity to upstate New York. I'd like to begin by thanking the members of the Climate Action Council for providing us as our community with a platform to voice our thoughts on the CLCPA and draft scope of the plan. We strongly support action to prevent climate change and the impact it will have on a global level. However, the CLCPA has been a major concern of our membership since 2019, as the goals set by the state are some of the most aggressive in the nation. While we certainly appreciate the intent of the plan and support using renewables and clean energy technology to reduce emissions, which many of our businesses are already doing, we believe that these mandates are going to be prohibitively expensive and will force business owners to leave New York. We understand how the costs associated with this plan will impact our businesses. Therefore, we strongly oppose any proposals that will drive employers out of our community. Our membership is extremely concerned with both the affordability and reliability aspects of this plan. A large concern is that the proposed recommendations fail to address the pre-pandemic and current business climate in upstate New York. With inflation on the rise, increased energy costs, and outdated infrastructure, any further costs or mandates associated with this plan will undoubtedly force businesses to close or move to other states. We also believe that this plan has the potential to disproportionately affect residents of low-income communities, as we are currently seeing projections of costs anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 per upstate New York household. According to the AARP, there are currently 330,000 New Yorkers behind on energy bills who are also at risk for potential shutoffs as early as next month. With nearly 92% of likely voters saying low-cost energy, reliable electricity are at the top of their concerns, we cannot impose such extreme costs on an already fragile economy. So I'll just fast forward to the end. But For these reasons, we would ask the Climate Action Council to conduct a comprehensive regional cost analysis of the impacts that these mandates will have on residents and businesses, evaluate the potential for extreme price volatility during the transition period to more robust markets, and finally, address the impact of the Ukraine crisis on the world energy market and how that will influence the upstate New York economy. Thank you.
Antoinette Zembrowski Alberti, Manager of Customer Energy Management, New York National Grid.
Vince, I'm going to ask you to please hold the mic right in front.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Antoinette Alberti, and I'm manager of the Customer Energy Management New York Growth Team for National Grid. I'm here on behalf of the company. My team develops new energy efficiency, electrification, heat, and demand response programs, always finding a better way for our customers. So solving climate change requires sweeping emission reductions across all sectors. Achieving meaningful decarbonization will require every tool in the toolbox, including a coordinated gas and electric strategy. Any pathway must start with energy efficiency and weatherization, which can fully deliver 1/3 of needed emissions reductions from heating. Wider adoption of measures to better insulate weatherized buildings and replace older appliances with more efficient ones will significantly lower the amount of fuel required to keep buildings warm and comfortable. This not only lowers direct costs for customers, but also reduces heating demand, which in turn reduces the need to build new infrastructure like this. Under any heating net zero vision, there is an important and critical role for electrification. When paired with 100% renewable energy, heat pumps can play an important role in achieving net zero for heat, especially where cost effective today. And it is cost effective today for our customers who heat with oil, propane, or old electric resistant heat. But to answer the question of what heating choice is affordable for me, it'll depend upon the unique heating circumstances of each of our customers. In our service territory today, most of our customers are still heating with the most cost-efficient option for them, which is gas. And especially for our low and moderate income customers, affordable heating is crucial. So we ask that you consider low carbon fuel standards for utilities so that we can continue to utilize our infrastructure in place and continue to provide cost-effective heating for our low and moderate.
And
Mine's good, testing. This is Alan Blair, a volunteer for Citizens Climate Lobby.
The scoping plan is a big step forward for New York. It comes straight from the CCIA, which is the law of the land. It should be treated that way, and it should have a source of dedicated funding. Today, though, I want to talk to you about fossil fuels. As a physician, I know from experience that fossil fuels damage our health, especially in our frontline communities. Take natural gas. People say it's clean, but it's not. It's dangerous and unhealthy. The fastest way it can kill you, besides blowing up your house, is by carbon monoxide poisoning. That's why state law requires carbon monoxide detectors in homes. And many more New Yorkers get sick and die from the slower ways fossil fuels can hurt you. We're talking heart disease, lung cancer, emphysema, asthma. Even pneumonia is more common with fossil fuel pollution. But it doesn't have to be this way. According to NYSERDA, if we implement all the provisions of the scoping plan, we'll reduce the impact of all these diseases. We'll also save New Yorkers $170 billion in healthcare costs over the next 30 years. So this is where I draw the line. I support switching to electric heat in all of our buildings as soon as possible. I support provisions to stop selling gas-powered cars even faster than the governor's new law mandates. I support scenario 3, which envisions low to no biofuels. I oppose even limited use of so-called renewable natural gas. It's a false solution. It's still natural gas and burning it will still kill people. So if you've come here to testify in favor of natural gas, I ask you, how many deaths is too many? How many people should suffer and die so the natural gas industry can keep making money hand over fist? Where do you draw the line?
Thank you. Vince?
Chris Berger, Whitney Point, New York.
Stranded assets are the economic equivalent to inertia. They impede progress. They create the fear behind the calls you hear to maintain the status quo. Stranded assets result from any transition to a new technology. And the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy is no exception. They're inevitable, but they can be drastically reduced with good strategic planning. The stranded assets, in this case, are the thousands of miles of pipes that deliver gas to our homes and businesses. In a way, we're lucky to have an aging infrastructure, but this advantage can be thrown away if we continue to force utilities to replace aging pipelines with new ones, with no hope of realizing a payback for their investment. That money can be better spent investing in the infrastructure of the future. The same holds true for equipment that uses fossil fuels. Anyone who buys a new furnace, stove, or hot water heater that uses fossil fuels has no hope of realizing the full value of that equipment and should be warned of that upfront before they purchase. Again, that money could be better spent on newer, better, more efficient, and less expensive ways to heat our homes and cook our meals. Even the money saved on operating expenses can be used to finance this transition. Good strategic planning reduces stranded assets. Such a plan would identify aging pipes, rank them, and use that information to develop a time frame for gradually decommissioning them, the oldest ones being eliminated first. This could be a guide for strategic investment and possible assistance. The most important aspect of the plan would be to make the decommissioning time frame public so people and businesses alike could plan ahead instead of being blindsided. Thank you.
This is Adam Flint, Director of Clean Energy Programs at a Network for a Sustainable Tomorrow.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The CLCPA is a great climate law. We are here to make it better. I have two recommendations. One is that because of limitations in the scope for the law around workforce and education, I feel that either this body or another body in government should rapidly convene a climate and clean energy careers working group to take up the pieces of work that were not included within the Just Transition Working Group or within other groups. This includes bringing in educators from K-12, SUNY, CUNY, BOCES, and also, of course, unions, employers, and other stakeholders, together with all relevant agencies, including the state ed department, which has not been present. This will allow us to go into the detail necessary to be able to create the workforce we need, and we need a big workforce. Just here in our community, we have 2 new clean energy factories going up over the next year. They need 300 people. We're not ready for that. The second recommendation, I think, will probably address a lot of the other issues that we're having with this law, and that is we need a Marshall Plan size outreach, education, and marketing campaign to make New Yorkers aware not only of this law, but of the huge employment and economic development opportunities that are contained within this law and with what's going on already. I have little doubt that those 2 factories and the decision of Ithaca to retrofit every building in the city over 10 years was not unrelated to the climate that's been created for businesses here, but it's a well-kept secret. Most people have no idea that the CLCPA is a thing, and most people have no idea that these opportunities are coming. When I was a kid in the 70s, we were properly brainwashed that smoking was bad for us. We need to have something on that scale that reaches that far down into the age group to make people aware of the huge opportunities for jobs, but also the dangers that people know less about. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Vince, and could we have groups 3 and 4 line up? 3 over here and 4 over here, please. Thank you.
Brian Eden, Vice Chair of Campaign for Renewable Energy.
The IPC issued a report last week that concluded that greenhouse gas emissions need to peak by 2025 to limit global warming close to the target of 1.5 degrees Celsius. We're so far off course from the Paris targets, with emissions continuing to rise. And the current path would lead us to warming of about 6 degrees above pre-industrial levels by the end of the century, unless we accelerate our mitigation efforts. NOAA's preliminary analysis showed that the annual increase in atmospheric methane during 2021 was the largest annual increase recorded since systematic measurements began in 1983. Emissions of carbon dioxide during 2000 to 2019 period ranked as the highest in human history. Atmospheric levels of carbon dioxide are now comparable to where they were during the mid-Pliocene epoch around 4.3 million years ago. During that period, the sea level was about 75 feet higher than today, and the average temperature was 7 degrees warmer. A theme expressed by some at previous areas is that the proposed plan is too expensive for consumers. Neither the data nor the economic analyses support that penny-wise, pound-foolish argument. The integration analysis prepared for the council projected that inaction would be much costlier than the action proposed. Another study concluded that impacts on public health from rising temperatures, damages to homes and businesses from windstorms and floods, mega droughts and crop failure, and massive fires impact on air quality could cost as much as $2 trillion annually by the end of the century, certainly more than our economy would bear. Therefore, I support scenario number 3. We must deploy massive amounts of existing and soon to mature clean energy and efficiency technologies. We have managed rapid technological transitions before, the horse and buggy to the automobile. How does that work for auto workers? Of course, this transition is far more critical. Just saying no is not an option. I urge all interested persons to play a constructive role in protecting our community. If you don't like the current plan, propose a better one. Finally, I wish to thank the council and advisory panel members who have dedicated their time and emotional commitment to this critical process.
Thank you. Ann?
This is Thomas Giroux, General Manager of Wagner Millwork.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having us. And I want to thank the CAC for all the work you guys have been doing. It's quite a challenge you have in front of you. So again, thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Tom Giroux. I'm the General Manager of Wagner Lumber Company, the Wagner Group, and we're also a wholly owned subsidiary of Bailey Lumber Company. Combined, we have about 800 employees in New York State and many more contractors and such beyond that. So today I'd like to comment a little bit about scoping plan, primarily with our largest sequestration and carbon storage tool that you have available to you, and that would be forests. So I would like to encourage the promotion of policies and laws which keep forests as forests, first of all. Promote reforestation of appropriate underutilized lands throughout New York State. Promote sustainable forest management practices. As we know, well-managed forests sequester more carbon over the long haul. This can be accomplished through funding of various programs to assist forest owners in paying for forestry services and other cultural practices. Support research into understanding the impacts of various forest management strategies and landscape level land use strategies to better understand impacts on carbon storage and sequestration. Recognizing that New York's wood products manufacturing sector competes on a global stage, our wood products manufacturers are among the most energy intensive and trade exposed industries in New York. Yet the scoping plan does not regard us as such. We are the largest market driver incentivizing forest owners to keep their forests as forests, and if we are not careful, these markets will leak out of New York into other states or countries. Finally, policies need to reflect the beneficial nature of solid wood products in building construction at all levels. Using solid wood products stores carbon for a very long time and can be brought to scale very quickly. Currently, a missed opportunity in the scoping plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Vince?
Gavin Mosley, Manager of Government Relations, NYSEG.
Good afternoon. My name is Gavin Mosley, and I'm with NYSEG. NYSEG and RG&E provides electric and gas service to nearly 1.9 million customers in every region of upstate New York. Our infrastructure includes over 49,400 miles of electric distribution and transmission lines, enough to circle the globe twice. We also have more than 17,000 miles of natural gas distribution and transmission lines. We fully support and embrace the state's greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. We are committed to working with the Climate Action Council as the state's energy system undergoes a historic transformation, while ensuring that the energy needed by our customers is safe, reliable, and affordable. One example of this commitment in the Southern Tier is our work with the city of Ithaca to implement its nation-leading Green New Deal goal to decarbonize the city by 2030. Achieving the state's energy and climate goals and providing New Yorkers with the utility service they expect and deserve will require a collective approach. As part of this transition, we will need to use and upgrade our existing electric infrastructure to help to ensure reliability and to transmit renewable generation. We will also need to explore potential future uses of our natural gas infrastructure and the delivery of low and no carbon renewable natural gas and hydrogen. To be successful, all options need to be on the table. The state must plan for the vital investments that will be needed to meet demand and renewable generation goals across its diverse regions. Determining affordable approaches that ensure safety and reliability for New Yorkers living in every different community and climate is an important step in this transition. As the state moves forward with its historic transformation, NYSEG and RG&E stands ready to assist in achieving emissions reduction and renewable energy goals, helping to make a safe, reliable, and affordable clean energy future for all New Yorkers a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. And
This is Rhiannon Sison, Office Manager of Sison Chainsaws and Stoves.
Good afternoon. My name is Rhiannon Sisson, owner of Sisson's Chainsaws and Stoves in Bolivar, New York. And as a business owner and resident of New York, I'm here today to voice opposition to the draft scoping plan. I strongly support climate advocacy and the quest to lower emissions. Our business has been open since April of 1981. We currently employ 10 people full-time, all of whom support families, and most of our employees have been with us for over 10 years. We specialize in power equipment, lawn and garden equipment, sport utility vehicles, and specialty fireplace products such as wood, pellet, and natural gas fueled fireplaces, stoves, and inserts. The Climate Action Council's Draft Scoping Act, as it stands now, will have a severe negative impact on our business. 70% of the stoves, fireplaces, and inserts we sell are products that use natural gas or propane, which our customers use as either primary or supplementary heating sources for their homes. These heating products alone account for approximately $500,000 in sales to our business every year, not including the venting components, accessories, and installation cost of these products, which brings that number closer to $750,000. If this scoping plan is implemented as written, that income will be gone. Furthermore, these units are not just decorative. These appliances are heavily regulated by the EPA and are designed to be efficient heat sources that can burn during power outages, which happens quite frequently in New York. By banning the use of natural gas and propane in New York, a reliable and efficient heat source will be taken away from all businesses and residents. Will be taken away from all residents and will destroy numerous small businesses just like ours. I have a lot more here, so I'm going to jump ahead. We are already seeing a rise in utility costs due to the pandemic, closed pipelines, demand, and inflation. These costs will only continue to get worse when residents are forced into electrification. The basic law of supply and demand states that when supply levels go down and demand stays the same, prices will go up. What will happen when supply and reliability go down and demand for electricity goes up? Prices will drastically increase and put a bigger financial burden on the residents of this state. We are not against low carbon energy. This is an important issue that needs to be addressed, but it needs to be done without hasty benchmarks and mandates. We need to consider multiple fuel options and not take away a consumer's right to choose. We need efficient and reliable energy sources, not rising costs, economic leakage, and job loss. It is for these reasons and so many more that as a small business owner and homeowner in New York, I strongly oppose the draft scoping plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben?
Iris Ben Gillingham, farmer of Wild Roots Farm.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm a second generation farmer from the Catskill Mountains. And when I was younger, my family's farm experienced 2 100-year floods and 1 500-year flood in the span of 5 years, which is a lot. And last year was one of the wettest years that my family has ever seen. We've been living on the same land for 3 generations. And last summer, our vegetables were turning yellow from oversaturation and erratic weather patterns due to climate change. And growing up, I have had a lot of exposure to what does climate change actually look like on the ground. To me, climate justice is a food security issue. And so if we want to be able to feed New York State in the coming future, that means we really need to take action. And with that, it's not the time to be pushing for false solutions like burning garbage to produce electricity, selling carbon offsets to polluters, and mixing hydrogen with natural gas and calling it blue. People use the term false solutions, but I like to call them dangerous distractions because that's all they are. The distraction from what is possible and what is absolutely necessary for the Climate Action Council's plan and for our communities in New York State. These dangerous distractions are not throwing a life jacket to New York communities dealing with climate change. They're actually throwing an anchor at our heads and saying, grab on, you'll float. We know that renewable energy is possible in New York. I grew up on a farm that is entirely solar powered, and it works well, it's effective, and it's reliable. And I know that we have this incredible opportunity right now to take action. So please do it.
Thank you. Ann?
This is Anna Pertel from Network for a Sustainable Tomorrow. My name is Anna Pertel, and I am a junior at Binghamton University. During college, I added environmental science as a second major because I realized that making our future more sustainable is the most important task of this era. As someone who will be living on this planet for many more years, I feel the impending urgency of addressing this climate crisis right now in the right way, which I believe involves the widespread implementation of renewable energy technologies and energy efficiency. We cannot waste time with false solutions like biofuels and so-called green hydrogen as fuels, as they take more energy to produce than they generate themselves, or those that reinforce the existing fossil fuel infrastructure and contribute to ongoing air pollution, such as renewable natural gas and waste incineration. These false solutions are just a facade for maintaining old and broken systems. We can't afford that. We need sweeping change. Fortunately, the technology is already there for proven and reliable solutions like wind and solar and heat pumps for heating and cooling. For the past year, I have interned for the Network for Sustainable Tomorrow, and I have seen firsthand how happy local residents are at having heat pumps installed in their homes because they run on electricity and are therefore much more efficient and cost-effective than traditional fossil fuel systems. If we power our grid with renewables like wind and solar, these electricity-based technologies become even cleaner, more sustainable, and more efficient, thereby ensuring the happiness of even more New Yorkers. The CLCPA can provide the systems to implement these real solutions so that my generation has a chance for a viable future. Thank you.
Thank you. Vince?
Jason Mirabito, Senior Vice President, Mirabito Energy Products.
Mirabito, Mirabito, that's okay, no big deal. Mirabito Energy Products is a 95-year-old family-owned company that has operated and been headquartered in New York State since day one. Mirabito is an energy company in all forms. Mirabito supports to provide new and carbon-clean energy products to its customers. Mirabito has been on the forefront and considers itself extremely progressive when it comes to adopting new methods of energy products. The first to sell E85 and embrace bio very early, holding various New York State bio bids for years now. Recently, Mirabito has been a leader in incorporating an electric charging offering at our convenience stores. We have installed Tesla chargers and worked directly with the New York State Power Authority to install level 3 chargers at a number of our locations, with many more to come. Mirabito is not scared of change. Mirabito is a leader in our industry, with our top priority always being providing its customers with reliable, dependable, and affordable energy. Mirabito has a serious concern with the current draft scoping plan produced by the Climate Action Council. In short, the scoping plan reads more like a master's thesis project instead of a serious attempt at applying true real-world practicality for providing clean, affordable energy to the needs of the citizens of New York State. Just like the rushed, failed policies in Europe, New York State is on a collision course to financially hurting its citizens. Mirabito would encourage the Climate Action Council to better balance the need between reducing the state's carbon footprint and ensuring fair market costs for all. Nothing will derail the goals of the state quicker than skyrocketing energy costs, electric costs, and citizens realizing the true cost of a lack of a comprehensive plan that includes all available low carbon energy sources. Mirabito wants to be a part of the solution, not the problem, and we hope the council will work closer with energy providers like us for a plan that can really work. And I leave you on this thought. A lot of you are from Albany, and your electric prices have skyrocketed in the last 2 months. That's because companies like us provided millions of gallons of fuel to cogen facilities to produce electricity. So if you want to electrify anything, you haven't seen anything yet.
Thank you. Ann.
This is Sarah Nickerson, Outreach Coordinator for Sustainable Tompkins.
Hello, my name is Sarah Nickerson, and I live in the Finger Lakes region of New York State. I want to thank New York's Climate Action Council for holding these public hearings so we can all, policymakers and New York State residents alike, be part of New York State's plan to protect our environment and communities and continue to find ways to improve this framework for how our state will reduce greenhouse gas emissions to achieve net zero emissions, increase renewable energy usage, and ensure climate justice. I am the Outreach Coordinator for Sustainable Tompkins, a community-based organization working towards a more sustainable regional community. But first and foremost, I am a mother. As the mother of an 8-year-old, I want to see our state succeed with these measures so that my son and future generations can step outside and breathe in the air, walk through lush green lands and swim in our lakes without fear of contamination, and so they can benefit from the opportunities that would be part of the green economy this plan intends to bring. While our state works toward implementing the changes put forth by the scoping plan, we know we need to resist claims regarding any need to keep fossil fuels as backup energy or that electricity is more costly than gas. As stated by representatives of the Climate Action Council in a recent webinar presented by the League of Women Voters of New York, inaction by New York State will exceed the cost of the actions proposed in New York State's climate scoping plan by more than $90 billion. We can't afford not to make these changes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Vince.
Stephanie Hines, Stakeholder Relations Analyst for AES.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Hines. I live in Campbell Falls, down in Orange County, New York, and I represent AES in our work in New York and the Northeast. AES is a Fortune 500 global energy company with a significant presence and investment in New York State. We currently operate over 800 megawatts of reliable, safe, and clean wind and solar power in New York, 2 gigawatts in development at the community and utility scale, including redevelopment of the former Somerset coal plant to produce solar power and repowering the largest wind portfolio in the state, 612 megawatts in western and northern New York. AES supports the provisions in the draft climate action plan that support and enable development of wind and solar power and other renewable energy technologies. The message from the Climate Action Council is that to achieve the 70% by 2030 mandate, New York needs to advance a significant number of wind, solar, and battery projects into construction. There are many ways the state can support this goal of getting projects built, especially by continuing procurement on an aggressive schedule of at least 4,500 gigawatt hours per year, 2022 through 2026, and by ORES continuing to improve and streamline the permitting process for cost-effective, timely, and environmentally responsible siting of renewable energy projects, while ensuring significant benefits to local communities. Finally, solar development and successful agriculture can both thrive in New York State. The state provides strong incentives for solar projects to avoid prime soils and should continue to encourage collaboration between the renewable energy industry and the farming community. AES and ACE New York stand ready to participate in this collaboration. Thank you to New York's Climate Action Council for the development of the draft plan and for holding this hearing. At AES, we know that implementing this aggressive plan and ensuring that new renewable energy gets built will not be easy, but We appreciate the state's focus and look forward to continuing to do business in New York.
Thank you. And
This is Wes Gillingham, Associate Director of Catskill Mountain Keeper.
Hello, thank you. I want to thank the Climate Action Council for the work that they're putting into producing this behemoth of a project. And I really appreciate that. One thing that I want to bring up is deep in the bowels of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and I think we can thank Bob Howarth for this, is looking at a full life cycle analysis of where our electricity comes from. So when we buy electricity from out of state, is it produced with fracked gas? How is it produced? And that's a really important piece, not just for electricity, but anything. We're talking about making a shift for the entire economy. And I'm just going to use agriculture as an example to talk about the full life cycle that needs to be analyzed in this process. And it should apply to all the aspects of the climate action plan that comes out in their first draft. We have an agricultural state. One of the things that's different about New York than a lot of the agricultural states in New York is that it's mostly made up of small and mid-sized farms. It's not mega industrial operations like you see in other states. We have the people on the ground already, and because of their size are ready to transition and can transition easier. We need to incentivize good policies to protect those farmers. Things like where the emissions are coming from a farm. There's the obvious, it was quoted, the articles were in the paper about the easiest way to do that is cover and flare CAFOs. Well, cover and flare CAFOs. Well, covering and flaring the industrial operations that are having the biggest impact on our, Chris can deal with that. The biggest impact on our emissions, that may be the cheapest way to do it, but you're also subsidizing that to continue. That's not what we need to happen. We need to have the money that is available going to farms that are doing the practices. Donald Lepardo pushed and got a really good soil health bill passed in this state last year. The things that are in the soil health bill, any money that goes to an agricultural operation should go to an operations that's doing what it says in that law. That will help us get carbon put into the soil instead of the atmosphere. Nitrous oxide is a really potent greenhouse gas. And when you use nitrogen fertilizers on a piece of land and it's used excessively, maybe a little less this year because it's so expensive, but when it's used excessively, where's the analysis? The same as the electricity, we should be looking at the impact of the production of that fertilizer, not just what it's releasing into the air. The ammonium factory down in Louisiana, and then transporting that up here to be sprayed on a field, that should be also analyzed as part of DEC's inventory of greenhouse gas emissions. We need to take our inventory of greenhouse gas emissions on all parts of the economy, analyze it as best we can, not the easiest way we can, but the best way we can. And by doing that, the thing with farms, it isn't just about building a widget. Farms are working the landscape. They are giving ecosystem services. We're not just going to count carbon and stick it in the soil. Farms are protecting our water courses. They're protecting our landscapes. They're protecting our biodiversity. They're protecting our entire region. The reason we're having trouble with climate is because we have treated the planet like a commodity instead of something to live off of.
I want to thank you for your comments if you'd like.
That was a good
Certainly submit the rest and write it up. Yes?
Mark Petzold, Tioga Center.
Hi, climate change is real today. We all know that. We need immediate action. I have made the choice to transition off heating oil, my residence in Tioga Center, and in Geneva, and transitioning off natural gas. In Tioga Center, I had Mitsubishi heat pumps installed by Arctic Bear and Endicott for heat and air conditioning. Our heat pump hot water tank was installed by Martin's Plumbing in Owego. It costs less than $100 a year to operate. Solar panels and an F-150 Lightning are on their way this summer. I'm on my way to energy independence, while supporting good paying local jobs for installation and maintenance. I made these choices because fossil fuels and human behavior have caused the planet to warm and threaten ecosystems and populations everywhere. After 59 years of dependence on oil and gas, it's time to change. What is the value of my choice if New York State doesn't expediently enact regulations to reduce the use of fossil fuels, methane, and weed out energy-intensive, non-essential industries? For example, my emission reduction pales in comparison to the Greenwich Bitcoin operation that burned 3.8 billion cubic feet of natural gas in 2020. The scoping plan mentions cryptocurrency only once. Why New York State leadership is pandering to a known climate damaging industry that provides no benefit to an overwhelming majority of New Yorkers is disheartening. I want leadership that values my choices as a citizen, not the wishes of industry. There are many actions in the scoping plan that can be enacted now. Ban gas appliances at new homes and phase out existing homes. Statewide composting, continue and expand great NYSERDA incentives for installing green technology. Some missing actions include bovine feed additives that reduce methane. The EU has adopted them. Educating the public on the benefit of a plant-based diet to reduce beef consumption and deforestation worldwide. Don't enact carbon offsets. To borrow from the lady earlier, that is a dangerous distraction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne?
This is Kevin Miller, consultant from Owego, New York.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the council for their long work and it's finally coming to an end. I was the deputy mayor in the village of Owego during the flood of 2011 after Hurricane Lee. Most of the homes that were flooded belonged to elderly residents and low-income residents. They were hardly able to respond and recover, and many sought out FEMA buyouts. The village GPW building was severely damaged and just now is getting ready to open with a government GOSER grant, government operations after Storm Sandy. What does GOSER stand for again? Right. And so 10 years later, we're finally getting a DPW building back. New York State can be a leader in climate leadership and be a model for other states. This act is a good first step to help New York adapt to climate change and decrease greenhouse gas production that contributes to climate change. The transition to a sustainable energy future will not be easy. We shouldn't kid ourselves about that. But every delay in making hard choices makes even harder choices for our children and grandchildren, and maybe even for some of the younger people here. Maybe even me if I keep alive. The state also needs to fund the actions in this act and to give it enforceable teeth so that it can be effectuated. We want to hear the echo of voices of the young in 20 years asking, they knew this would happen, so why didn't they act to prevent this tragedy to the earth and to us? Thank you.
Thank you. Vince?
Kamala Keeley, president of Three Rivers Development Corporation.
First of all, I wanted to thank the Climate Action Council for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Southern Tier. Three Rivers Development Corporation is located in Port New York, and we serve the counties of Chemung, Schuyler, and Steuben. Three Rivers' mission is to facilitate and drive community and economic initiatives and collaborations that grow the regional economy and enhance the overall quality of life. Winning the fight against climate change requires that we achieve emissions reductions across multiple sectors, how we generate electricity, fuel our vehicles, and heat our buildings, all while ensuring safety, security, reliability, equity, and affordability. Although we agree that these are necessary steps for the long-term benefit of our residents and businesses and applaud leadership's commitment to the environment, the scope and degree of change required to meet the greenhouse gas emissions reduction and renewable energy deployment targets outlined in the CLCPA will prove to be extremely difficult and costly. Our region has serious concerns about the proposed timeline and cost for updating and modernizing infrastructure to accommodate the increased demands on the existing grid. NYSEG has estimated that they will need to invest more than $2 billion into the Hornell system alone for transmission purposes to help meet these goals. That estimate doesn't include necessary investments into distribution systems to get the power to homes and businesses who will no longer be able to rely on gas. It is estimated that the full heat electrification will cost New York consumers more than $70 billion. The cost to individuals will be great, and although we understand the many long-term benefits, There needs to be a way to move forward without creating additional economic hardship for many families and individuals already impacted by the repercussions of COVID-19. I'm like following the microphone here a little bit. Expensive carbon taxes, penalties on traditional heating equipment, prohibitions on replacing existing household infrastructure with newer, cleaner, and more efficient models, and extreme conditions placed on an already unreliable electric grid will impact working, middle class, and lower income households to an unfair degree. Ensuring energy equity is an important goal and an outcome deserved by individuals, families, and communities across the state. The Southern Tier recognizes the great challenge posed by climate change, and ultimately we support an aggressive push towards cleaner energy standards. The current proposed plan is not working in our best interest and creates too much disruption, unnecessary cost, and unrealistic deadlines. We urge the council to create a timeline and standards which better reflect realistic possibilities for our community and a better chance for overall success towards our shared goal. Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you.
And
Kennedy from Catskill Mountain Keeper.
I studied at Binghamton University for 4 years and graduated last May with a degree in public health. I am deeply concerned with how the ongoing climate crisis and our lack of urgency in addressing it is impacting the health and safety of our communities in New York and across the planet. Our dependence on fossil fuels has thrown our planet's climate out of balance and has resulted in increasingly extreme weather patterns, from Hurricane Sandy on Long Island to unprecedented levels of flooding in Binghamton and lethal heat waves in our cities. These weather events are extremely costly, resulting in irreparable damage to homes and infrastructure and countless lives lost. The price tag for a scenario 3 transition to renewable energy is not cheap, but it is far less expensive than continuing to allow the fossil fuel industry to wreak havoc on our climate and our communities. I'm calling on the Climate Action Council to prioritize the following in its scoping plan: upholding environmental justice and safeguarding public health, rejecting dangerous distractions like renewable natural gas and unproven technologies like carbon sequestration, funding for the CLCPA, and achieving scenario 3 as described by the CAC, and enforcing the mandates established in the scoping plan. Thank you.
Vince?
Gay Knuth, president of ETM SolarWorks.
Hi, I'm the owner of a solar energy installing company in Endicott, New York, in business for 34 years. Since the mid-1990s, New York State has taken the leadership position on the deployment of solar energy systems, primarily for the generation of electricity. We are in an excellent position to continue that leadership and take New York and the USA through the transition to widespread use of solar and wind power. We cannot afford to dither around further trying to decide if we should allow fossil fuel companies to continue to destroy our only home for money. The pumping of mass quantities of CO2 from burning fossil fuels is the main problem. We know this for sure. The impacts of climate change are clear. Hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires are all getting bigger and more widespread every year. And those impacts are way more expensive than our plans to address the problem. Here in the Southern Tier, we've had 2 historic floods in less than 10 years apart. The impacts of climate change are not hypothetical nor far away. In 2011, our favorite electrical supplier store was underwater. And I had to move my elderly mom out of her house in Endicott because of rising floodwaters. There's good news though. The technology and know-how is in place to make a fast transition away from fossil fuels. We know how to do everything with electricity, including heating and transportation. That electricity can easily be generated by wind and solar power. The solar industry is growing so fast. If you plug the growth that's been going on over the last 5 years into your spreadsheet, you will find that in less than 15 years, we can have 100% solar power in the USA. And since the wind and battery storage industries are also growing fast, heck, we might be able to do it in 10. As for jobs, clean energy businesses are top growth job areas and in our economy today. Right here in Endicott, we got a new battery factory, new solar cell factory, and our place is down the street from those. The factories, we could do more. Factories that are making gas-fired turbines, well, we could convert those into making wind turbines. Ooh, wouldn't that be something? Or, maybe those coal miners would rather be outside in the fresh air and sunshine putting up solar panels. We need lots of steel. to build solar racks and wind towers, wouldn't it be nice to have US-made steel again? The Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act is New York's way of putting some rules in place to accelerate this very necessary transition away from fossil fuel burning. We have the tools to do this in a just and affordable way. So let's get started.
Thank you. Ann?
This is Alan Ford, Vice President, Public Affairs for Kinder Morgan.
Thank you very much and appreciate the opportunity to address the committee. If you're not aware of Kinder Morgan, what we do is we transport and store energy, primarily natural gas, but also petroleum products, gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. We recognize there is an energy transition underway. Any day of the year, we are transporting about 40% of the natural gas in the country through our existing infrastructure system. But we also know that the existing 80,000 miles of pipelines we have, including around 900 in New York, how can those be repurposed in the future to meet the climate goals of New York and many states across the country? We do business in over 40 states, and each state is facing these same challenges of trying to meet climate goals. So we appreciate the efforts that the committee has made so far. We do want to be a partner. Wherever we can look at commercially viable opportunities for energy transition, we are doing so. We created an energy transition ventures group within Kinder Morgan recently, and we're already actively underway in developing commercially viable projects, such as the first ever renewable diesel hubs in Northern and Southern California. Significant investments in transportation of methane from landfills into the existing transportation grid for natural gas. The days of significant new natural gas infrastructure projects, that's multi-state linear projects, are probably over. But what can we do with what we have? We have to continue to serve the customers that we have in a safe and responsible way. We don't store or transport anything that isn't eventually used by someone. So as long as there is a need, we want to work with the state of New York in developing a commercially viable transition process that keeps folks working, keeps energy in homes and businesses, but also meets the worthy goals of the state of New York and all states across the country. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Vince?
Daniel Crocker, Business Manager of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local Union 112.
Good afternoon. I'm pretty sure I won't need that.
Okay.
New York needs a smooth transition to clean energy future. Skilled labor will be the ones tasked with building the clean energy systems. The next immediate step is to bridge the gaps to reach clean energy future. Without an energy bridge, real problems today will not be solved. We need access to clean, reliable, and affordable electricity that works 24/7 without interruption and independent of the weather. A smooth transition to 100% reliable, renewable electricity is essential for reliability and public safety purposes. New York needs an all of the above energy strategy to reduce the cost of electricity, create thousands of jobs, and protect grid reliability. A smooth transition to a renewable energy system will guarantee reliability standards are met while achieving climate goals. New base generation can include utility-sized thermal systems, new clean technology using hydrogen, and even new safer nuclear systems. The New York State Building Trades has joined up with a Clean Energy Jobs Coalition New York. The coalition welcomes the participation of the discussion with all groups to help policymakers understand the benefits of building a clean energy bridge to reach a clean energy future. Thank you.
Thank you. And just before you go, could we have group 5 and group 6, please?
This is Valdi Wiederpass from Sierra Club.
Hi, my name is Valdi Wiederpass. I live in Endicott, New York, and I volunteer as the chair of our local Susquehanna group of Sierra Club, which has over 1,000 members across 5 counties in our area. I'm speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club today, the nation's oldest and largest grassroots environmental organization with over 3.5 million members and supporters nationwide, over 353,000 members and supporters in New York State, with 47,000 of them actual members in New York State. I'm a retired engineer, and I remember the flood of early September of 2011, which flooded the former location of my workplace, Air Force Plant 59, which was built at the beginning of World War II, along with many other businesses and homes. The flood was caused by slow-moving tropical storm Lee, which dropped a foot of rain in parts of Broome County in a little over 24 hours. Air Force Plant 59 has since been demolished, as have 370 homes and buildings in Broome County. This storm's total cost was over $1 billion in property damage and required flood resiliency work in just Broome County alone. The storm's characteristics were consistent with expected exacerbation of severe storms by climate change. I and other New Yorkers want New York to do its part to help prevent a worsening future. We want strong climate action with a scoping plan that implements the CLCPA with no compromises, and needed funding of $15 billion per year with help for low to moderate income residents, for them to do the transition that we're asking them to do. Scenario 3 is preferred to prevent biogas from being used to justify continued gas distribution, and also to prevent combustion of hydrogen, which produces nitrogen oxide, which is also a greenhouse gas. We need a big increase in renewable energy, energy storage, and energy efficiency. Our electric grid capacity needs to double by 2050 to be able to heat our homes with heat pumps and to charge electric vehicles. Detailed yearly milestones and more authority are needed to coordinate grid transformation to be based on renewables. Stop expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure, phase out existing fossil fuel plants, require all new buildings to be fully electric beginning in 2024. Gas is not a bridge fuel. Its leakage is accelerating climate change. More jobs, better health, and billions in savings and prevention of deaths are in our future if we do this right. The longer we wait, the higher the cost will be, and the ultimate cost will be breakdown of human civilization if we get to hothouse Earth, which climate scientists are warning will happen. So thank you if we don't act. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And hang on for 1 second, Vince. I don't think I have anyone else who's in the even group. So could 3, 4, 5 people move over to this group so we'll go back and forth? Thank you. And we'll just jump to you.
This is James Carcaldi, business agent, IBEW Local 10.
My name is James Carcaldi. I'm a business representative for IBEW Local 10, based right here in Binghamton. I am here on behalf of the 190 highly skilled natural gas utility workers that we represent throughout New York State, whose jobs and livelihood will be killed off by Albany's new energy plan. As a 20-year-plus natural gas utility worker and IBEW member, this plan cannot be rushed. The plan must incorporate the completed and actual use of new technologies for renewable natural gas and hydrogen-based solutions in order for a proper transition to a zero carbon economy. You cannot ban the use of natural gas until those options are fully implemented and in place, period. We stand for intelligent change, not improvised draft scoping plans. This plan can and will be detrimental to public safety due to the possibilities of rolling power outages where natural gas generation is used to power our firehouses, hospitals, and nursing homes. You must reconsider the future energy plan. This one is wrong and dangerous and will come at a great cost to us hardworking New Yorkers. Albany's wish for an entirely electrified home is something we simply cannot afford. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Vince?
Kelvin Harala, Business Manager of IBEW Local 325.
Hi, I'm Calvin Harala, Business Manager, IBEW Local 325, right here in Binghamton, New York. I represent men and women who help, install the solar fields and the clean energy coming. However, I feel we need all options on the table. We can't just rush right into the immediate switch over. And the gas, we need to use the gas. UK USA is #1 exporter of natural gas to the world. We just signed the UK to replace what they lost from Russia with what's going on in the Ukraine. We need to be energy independent with what we have to safely extract it and use it in this transition. We just can't run down the hill into something we know as far as, it's great to have all electric vehicles, but what is the demand? What is the load going to put on our grid that's maxed out now to charge all these vehicles, to run heat pumps? Heat pumps don't work in the extreme cold. When you get down to 20 degrees, heat pumps will start failing. You want to talk about deaths? We have a snowstorm out in the country. All the power lines go down. The utilities can't get there in time. Some places are a week without power. Houses are a long ways apart. If you're all electric heat, there's going to be deaths there, the old people. You need to slow down, look at this. Yes, we do need to get things straight. We do need to keep track of our carbon, take advantage of carbon capturing technology, utilize our gas. They're going to make power someplace else. We're going to buy it. We're going to buy it from Canada. Canada's making power with natural gas. China has increased coal use, coal production, and natural gas. They're making all the stuff we're buying, and they're polluting more and increasing all the time. What New York State does, that electricity is going to come from someplace that's making power for what we're getting away from. So what is our net gain there?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone, if you would like to speak tonight, you haven't registered, you can still register you at the table. If you prefer, there's an online comment form at climate.ny.gov. I'm throwing this out there because I can see a couple of people are heading home for dinner. Anne?
This is Jerry Wiley from Owego.
Thank you for this opportunity to share our views with you and to listen carefully to one another. Last week, I listened to the Brookhaven hearing on Zoom. Although as a public health nurse and a climate activist, I know we need to move swiftly to reduce methane emissions and that we must say no to all new gas infrastructure. I was surprised to find myself appreciating and identifying with union and utility representatives. Why? Because of their heartfelt statements, their commitment to and their pride in their work and their families, their focus on energy reliability and safety, and their solidarity with one another. I came away from that hearing feeling strongly that we can reach agreement, knowing that right now in the state of Massachusetts, there are pilot programs led by Eversource and National Grid using current utility rights of way to convert gas pipelines in neighborhoods to water lines heated and cooled by ground source heat pumps, using and balancing waste heat and cooling. The skill set of current gas utility workers is transferable and will be critically needed as we move forward in this transformative way. The current house-by-house geothermal transition is too slow and too expensive. We need our utilities to get us all in the loop, the GeoGrid loop. Projects like this will help to flatten the eventual winter peak load because the ground loops act as seasonal thermal storage. Thank you to the Climate Action Council for noting this strategy in Chapter 18 on gas transition. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Vince?
Jennifer Cassie of the Gilbert Coalition of Non-Participating Residents.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. It's pertinent to my comments to quickly let you know my background. I'm now a farmer, but in 2020, I retired from the Army after 29 years as an environmental science officer, where I was charged with protecting the environments we operated in, both in the US and abroad, and protecting soldiers from environmental threats. I have a master's degree in entomology and applied ecology, and I'm a life member of the Sierra Club. I try to be a good steward of the earth in all that I do, which is why I feel obligated to raise some important issues pertaining to New York's draft climate action plan. I live in Guilford, a community in Shenango County with an approved industrial wind turbine project, so I am experiencing the state's green energy efforts in real time. Comprehensively, it seems questionable to me whether or not the state really wants to build the most efficient wind and solar systems possible when the state itself is not identifying and selecting the locations most suitable for these projects, to include state-owned land. Instead, respective industries are selecting these locations, and they do not appear to be selecting them based on how much energy will be produced. Rather, they're typically selecting low-income communities where the ability to counter an unwanted project is limited at best. As an example, please consider that despite page 84 of the 2016 Shenango County Comprehensive Plan stating, quote, because of Shenango County's north to south facing hills which hamper the flow of wind, the ability to locate large and in some cases small wind energy is prohibitive, end quote. The hybrid project is continuing to move forward. Even the developer actually stated in their application that Guilford is a reduced wind resource. So why was Guilford selected for this project? The answer is because the per capita income in the town of Guilford is only $27,892, meaning the community could not afford to legally challenge the project. In fact, in 13 of the communities where wind projects either exist or are proposed, the per capita income falls between $7,000 and $18,000 below the state's average per capita income of $48,898. This begs the question, if the climate plan is designed to focus on the well-being of communities and implement so-called climate justice, why are turbine projects established in and proposed for some of the poorest communities in the state, even when they are not ideally suited? During my research of the 50 wealthiest towns in upstate New York, it does not appear that any of the proposed projects are in the immediate vicinity of any of these communities, regardless of the suitability. I'll jump to the bottom and submit the rest of my questions in writing. In conclusion, since the climate situation is dire, why isn't every available option on the table for consideration? Why are nuclear power plants being closed instead of looking at ways to ensure safety and manage the waste? The federal government is currently in support of the use of nuclear energy, so why isn't New York? Last year, New York used approximately 60% more fossil fuels after the closure of Indian Point than before it. Eliminating a type of energy which does not create carbon emissions seems counterintuitive, as does the removal.
I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to move on.
1 sentence.
Thank you. You can submit the rest in
I
writing.
will, thank you.
This is Stan Whittingham, Professor and Director of NECCES at Binghamton University.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Climate Action Committee for their foresighted plan. Its implementation is absolutely essential for the health of our children and grandchildren. We can't stay on the same track we are now. But in the area of storage, the plan does not go nearly far enough. If we're going to go to renewable energy, we need much more storage. The present plan has little more than one present facility at Moss Landing in California. We need at least 10 times as much as what is in the plan as it is. To do this, I think we need additional incentives, both before and after the meter, for users and for the utilities. We've got to incentivize utilities to do this. That's the big utilities. I think the small companies, AES and others, are already doing it and making money. Finally, we need preference for anything we install to be made in New York. We need to build the workforce in New York, and in particular, we need to train the workforce for this new business. We do not have the workers now. We have to put much more effort into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vince?
John Patrick, Binghamton student.
Hello, my name is John Patrick, and I'm a junior at Binghamton University, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak in front of you today. First of all, I would like to implore you not to listen to, as it was put, deadly distractions. Any delay in these plans basically means that I don't get to live as long as you did. So that's that. Second of all, I appreciated those who have mentioned low-income communities in this talk. I haven't really heard much of it. One thing I also haven't heard much of is considering transportation in this plan. I'm willing to bet that almost every single person in this room arrived at this building in a car. Cars are known to be even more inefficient than coal-fired steam power plants in producing power. We need to transition if we are truly going to be enacting climate justice for our communities, you have to be transitioning to more options for public transportation. This includes electric buses and light rail that functions on electric lines, thus eliminating the need for lithium-ion batteries, which unfairly take away the climate justice of countries in which the lithium has to be mined from. So I implore you to consider that in your plan and to make more room for those who may not be able to afford a new electric car. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann?
This is William Mattingly from Painted Post, New York.
I thank the council and NYSERDA for the opportunity to speak today. I'm a Western New York native, currently living in Steuben County. I'm a retired material science engineer. I'm a volunteer with the Sierra Club Finger Lakes group, although these comments are my own. New Yorkers support climate action and the CLCPA with no compromises. We want to see a full and complete transition to a clean economy by 2050 with zero emissions electric grid by 2040. The plan's analysis show this is very doable and that we can fully phase out fossil fuel combustion. We cannot continue the leniency with major fossil fuel burning businesses like gas power plants as we have in the past. A new threat to our transition away from fossil fuels is the rapid growth of proof of work cryptocurrency mining in the state. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Proof of work cryptocurrencies are voracious and wasteful electricity users. The electricity demand from crypto mining has already driven up power bills across the state and cost small New York businesses and residents already $244 million. A single Bitcoin transaction consumes the same electrical energy as the average US home consumes over 6 weeks. That's unacceptable. Fortunately, there are solutions. Vitalik Buterin, the creator of the #2 cryptocurrency, Ethereum, is moving to convert Ethereum to a proof of stake transaction validation method. Proof of stake uses less than 1% the electricity of proof of work and is more secure, according to Mr. Buterin. We must hold the proof of work cryptocurrency community to energy efficiency standards, just like we do for appliances and the auto industry. In short, we must demand a change to a low energy code. Change the code, not the climate. Thank you.
Thank you. Vince?
Gregor Stasek of Binghamton, New York.
My name is Gregor Stasek. I'm just a resident of Shenango Forks. I work for a pharmaceutical company. I'm just a guy who loves to dig through data. So I decided to come here and voice my opinion on the plan. So I'm just going to go through and go as far as I can, and I'll write the rest. So one thing I thought, better data in the plan. If you go to page 150, there's a really good graph of our gigawatt hour usage for New York over the past 14 years and the sources it came from. There should be a graph that projects that to 2060 when we're using 300,000 gigawatt hours and what those projected sources would be at that time period. The other thing is when you talk in gigawatt hours, or I should say megawatts for wind turbines, solar projects, whatever, should be number of wind turbines you're planning on put it up on an offshore wind farm. Is it 900, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000? What is it? Where are they going to go? How much land is it going to take up? Those sorts of things, just better data, better transparency throughout. The plan overall lacks that a lot. And that's one of my biggest criticisms of it. The data is lacking. There's a huge emphasis on moving away from methane. That's a great idea. Issue is, you don't want to burn methane to heat from a power plant to heat your house. That makes no sense. So you got to think about that when you're going through this plan. If you knock out all the methane by 2024 and we don't have enough power to back it up, we're going to be buying that from Pennsylvania. They burn coal, nuclear, and methane to heat our homes. Something that's got to be thought about. Controlling the cost of energy. There's no emphasis on that at all in the plan. Got to be more of it. Got to be more of it. If you don't control energy cost, people are going to go crazy and then they're not going to support it at all. Take states like Kansas, Iowa, they're already at 70% of their power coming from renewable energy. Go to them, talk to them. How did you get there? What did you do? What were your good things that happened? What were your bad things that happened? Should be more emphasis on that in the plan. Think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And
This is Mark Scalafani, Senior Director of Energy Policy at Utility Consultation Group.
Thank you for the opportunity to make comments tonight. I'm making the statement on behalf of the Utility Consultation Group, or UCG, representing New York's major electric and gas utilities. The UCG was formed in December 2020 to provide expertise to the Climate Action Council and be a resource for its advisory panels. Our companies operate the complex systems that deliver energy our customers need at home and in their businesses. We are committed to using our significant experience to assist the state in achieving its emissions reduction goals. Given the complexity of energy systems and the transformation required to meet the state's goals, it is imperative that the state's focus be on the continued provision of safe and reliable energy to our customers. To achieve decarbonization while ensuring reliable service requires optimization of energy delivery system and relies on a multitude of existing and future energy resources. We recommend keeping all energy options on the table at this early stage in the decarbonization process. Electrifying portions of our energy system that rely on other sources of energy will require additional infrastructure to meet the demands of a cleaner, larger electric network. We should look at the entirety of the energy system to ensure the most cost-effective approach to achievement of CLCPA goals. The gas distribution system must continue to serve customers safely and reliably. In the future, that system can facilitate energy decarbonization by flowing low and no carbon energy like renewable natural gas and hydrogen. We support robust research initiatives to develop these and other necessary technologies such as electric storage, carbon capture, and geothermal systems. With our proven track record of emissions reductions and meeting energy delivery needs, we are committed to helping the state meet its climate goals while together ensuring a reliable, safe, cost-effective, clean energy future for our customers. Thank you.
thank you. Vince.
Mr. James Tapp of Binghamton, New York.
Jim Taft, retired probation officer. Is there another planet like Earth? This beautiful orb with its reliable star has produced myriads of astonishing life forms, including us. Our dominant species, through taking care of its own desires, has transformed land, sea, and airscapes everywhere, thereby threatening many life forms, including our very selves. Changing the composition and heat trapping ability of the atmosphere is widely recognized as a fatal blow to much of planetary life. We, in our abundantly blessed New York State, have in the CLCPA a splendid opportunity to model for the country and all nations beneficial corrections to the relationship between human technologies and planetary systems. I advise boldness and haste. I reviewed the transportation section. These are among my suggestions. Scoping should estimate greenhouse gas reductions resulting from various policies, thereby introducing budgeting and more realism into plans. New York should immediately implement obviously beneficial policies, for example, EV promotion and mobility optimized development. The legislature should give the executive temporary authority to mandate greenhouse gas reducing policies in order to quickly establish climate leadership in this planetary emergency. And finally, consider the carbon fee and dividend model, which would create more revenue for New York State to quickly reduce greenhouse gases.
Thank you. And just before you go, if anyone else has a speaker card and I didn't call their group, if you would come down and queue up, we'd be happy to hear from you. But Ann?
This is Matthew Wahila, research scientist.
Hi, I'm a research scientist here at Binghamton University.
I work in the analytical and diagnostics laboratory servicing our many research centers. So I've had the privilege of working on a lot of renewable energy technology research here at Binghamton University over the many years I've worked here, including things like hydrogen generation through water splitting, fuel cell vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, solar cells, flexible electronics, etc. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and researching renewable energy technology. And I just want to say, at this point, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to invest any more money in fossil fuels, especially if we're thinking about things like natural gas and whatever as sort of bridge technologies. It doesn't really make sense to waste money on a temporary bridge when you could just go straight to renewable energies. I think renewable energies are the key for our future if we're looking at things like energy independence and resiliency and reliability of our grid and our power generation. If you want that, you want a lot of distributed and local energy generation through things like renewable wind, geothermal. You don't really want these big power plants anymore. So people that are worried about, oh, we're going to have brownouts and we're going to have reliability issues, really, if you want to avoid that, you want to go towards renewables and this delocalized energy generation. And I also want to say fossil fuels, for a long time, they've been kind of like a disease in our country. It's been damaging our health, it's been damaging our environment, it's been increasing the temperature. I'm sure if, say, you could wave a magic wand and cure cancer overnight, a lot of doctors, a lot of pharmaceutical companies, a lot of nurses would lose a lot of jobs. They lose a lot of work. But I think that would be a really bad reason to not do it, to not solve that problem, and to save those lives. So I think people arguing that, oh, we shouldn't transition to renewables because, oh, we're going to lose all these jobs in fossil fuel industry, et cetera. I think that's a bad reason to not tackle this problem. We need to do it for the health of our planet and our community. I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vince?
Wes Ernsberger, Owego, New York.
First, thank you so much. You have put so much hard work and careful thought into the scoping plan, and you obviously care deeply about our collective future. There are many aspects to climate mitigation, but today I would like to comment on Chapter 18, Gas System Transition. I was happy to see community thermal heat pumps listed there as a potential solution. With this solution, the current gas grid would be replaced over time by an interconnected network of ground source loop fields that use the existing gas pipeline right-of-way. This network would be built, owned, and maintained by today's gas utilities, which would transition to becoming thermal energy utilities. Rather than supplying gas to their customers, they would instead supply heat from the ground in the form of water that is kept at around 50 degrees by being pumped through the loop field. Existing gas furnaces would be replaced with ground source heat pump equipment, which could either be owned by the customer or by the utility. I recently heard an excellent explanation of the community thermal proposal on the April 1st Volts podcast. It explained the many advantages of this solution. For example, the gas utilities can adapt their existing workforce and build out this service at scale much more quickly than can be done by electrifying one building at a time. According to their analysis, the utility could provide this thermal energy service to customers at a lower price than they're paying now for natural gas. I look forward to New York agencies conducting a thorough evaluation of transitioning our gas grid to community thermal, drawing insights from the several pilot projects that are currently underway. I believe that community thermal will end up being one of the key technologies that enable New York to achieve its climate goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has the speaker card who has yet to speak? Okay. We'll stay here until a little bit after 6 and see if anybody comes in. But if not, I want to thank everyone for participating, and especially want to thank the Binghamton University for all of their help in setting things up and
supporting this effort. So thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yep, nice to meet you too.
Okay.
So it still hurts. But it was like college. I just took another beer. Just keep going. Good job. Thank you for it.